the whole cycle of life becomes much more evident for kids when they can not only see what's happening, but taste what's happening too. And the whole idea that something grows on a vine from a flower is a big aha moment for a child.
Well, my partner and I, Amy, were doing children's books. We have a small independent press that we were publishing children's books, and we had one book that called Our Generous Garden by Ann Negro that just seemed to tap into a zeitgeist that we just felt like, oh my gosh, this is such a good idea. And it was about a children's garden, a second grade children's garden, that the children, it starts off where they plant the seeds, and then they watch the garden grow, and then they take their harvest and they give it to a community center at the end. And they also take some of the fruits and vegetables home. And it just, people were really responding to it. So Amy came up with this wonderful idea of doing children's gardens.
The idea is that a lot of the problems that we face today with health, with children's health, with adult health, with 1 in 3 adults suffering from a diet-related illness, with 1 in 5 children suffering from a diet-related illness, that there's a way to address a mammoth problem, and that is to go back and start looking at how we can sustain our food sources through local gardening. And it's not that difficult to do, and it's the first step in taking care of the health and well-being of our society. Studies have shown that children who grow their own food are much more likely to eat their own food. And on top of that study is numerous other studies showing how desperate the food insecurity issues are in the United States, not knowing where one meal will be coming from during the course of a day. So this is an issue that a garden can help alleviate. Well, what we like to work with first is an assessment kit that people can download off the website, and they complete it with the group that may be interested in starting a garden. So if it's an after-school club, there might be 3 or 4 people that have come up with the idea of wanting a garden, and then they can go online and complete this form that basically gives you, all the specifications for what you're going to need. So if you need 8 hours of sunlight, which is a must for every garden, you need a water spigot, you need a couple people that are going to be regular participants in the garden, and then you need to make some decisions on what you want to grow and who you want to feed and how many people you want to have access to the garden to take the food home. Most communities like to keep it proximate to an activity source, so many areas will be after-school programs or church groups. It can be everything from a rooftop garden to a playground garden to a parking lot garden that we can build with raised beds. But it usually is a way for community to come together, a place where community can come together. The first couple weeks are really busy with watering and staking and kind of making sure all the plants are happy. With raised beds, which is what we really enjoy putting in, it's minimal weeding because it's not at ground level. And then it's about once a week that the kids can really have to be out there to do the work, whether it's pruning or watering. We like to stagger the harvest of a lot of the plants and trees and fruit bushes so that there's an active component every month from May through October. And many people like to actually hoop house, which means you can extend a season for a couple more months into November and December with significant yields of lettuces and cold weather things like potatoes and radishes. The water supply obviously is a big one, and in general, it really only takes about 5 or 10 people to keep the garden running. We prefer to use raised beds because you don't bump into the soil toxicity issues that many communities face. It also provides an easy access for young children as well as intergenerational type of environments, handicapped access, and then obviously the weed component is a big one. So a raised bed can range in size from 4x4 to 10x8, that kind of setup. It really only takes about 5 hours to put in a significant sized garden. Community participation can be a challenge, and I think for most people what they find is once the garden is up, there's a whole lot of curiosity about how people can participate. So most of the challenges that people face could be brought down to the dollar amount of having the money to put the garden in, and that's where we like to provide our resources and ideas and suggestions to help through Yellow Tractor. It truly is an active learning environment when you look at what kids are, where they're getting a lot of their answers these days. It's instantaneous, and it's not in the quiet, thoughtful place of a garden. Some of the fun activities that build teamwork are observation activities. Actually just staring at soil and seeing what's moving around can be really fascinating. Looking at a plant up close and seeing how the root structure comes out and using that power of observation to enjoy the activity that they're doing. There's all kinds of science projects that can involve soils and plant growth and graphing and sunlight and water scheduling. There's all kinds of history lessons that can be incorporated in from Native American methods of farming and gardening. Obviously the nutrition component is a big one these days as kids have hopefully better access to healthier foods. They can start to learn about the nutrient content of the foods that they're actually eating. If a teacher has a history lesson or a social studies lesson, you can talk about the foods and the spices that are used in certain kinds of cooking. If you've got a science-based lesson, you can talk about organic and inorganic soils. You can talk about composting and how things deteriorate, and you can talk about the rain cycles.
Who would think that kids would like to get down and dirty and get, use shovels and use their bodies and feel like the pain of digging and be excited about that? And I think that watching that happen is pretty amazing. There's the benefit of getting a community together. I think communities are looking for places to get together in this society today. I think there's kind of a lack there, and this is you give somebody something to do and they'll want to do it. So I think that's one of the benefits of the Yellow Tractor program is it gives people a reason to get together.
The grandparent might be more involved in helping the child plan the garden and showing them how to do the tending and the weeding and the watering, as well as maybe even showing them the difference between a stem, a root, a leaf, and a flower, and what part you eat. I mean, we forget what a resource our parents and grandparents can be as far as food preparation and cooking. There are
recipes, yeah.
Recipes to hand down. There's the whole sharing component of working on it together too. The other significant benefit is the amount of food that can be given back to the people that participate in the gardens. So many of the successful gardens will be set up as a co-op kind of situation, or as individual harvest days where people can come in and take food home. Some people like to use their bounty for farmers markets. Some people like to donate it to the local food bank. So you get not only the empowerment of building and sustaining the garden, but you get the give component afterwards, after you've learned how to grow your own food and you're able to give it away or use it yourself.
Tackling the issues of health, of diabetes, of obesity, it seems like a natural way to go, where you grow your own food, you eat your food that you grew, or you give the food that you grew away. It's a win-win situation. I think that parents would love to see, I know I would love to see my kids be involved and to be excited about helping and be excited about putting together something that's bigger than themselves. Well, there was one story of a child who was pretty withdrawn in his classroom, and they started the school garden program, and he just blossomed. And he was so excited about the vegetables coming out of the garden that the teacher wrote to us and said that this kid has changed because of this program. And he became a different kid, and a different kind of kid. He was a learning kid instead of a withdrawn kid. He was so excited about the garden and about the carrots that came out and the vegetables that he was able to eat and produce. And we have a picture of him that's just
on the cover of
our
super garden.
He's on the cover of our super garden, and he's just, you can see in his eyes how excited he is. So that's a great story right there.
But in the summer, in the winter, it's gonna turn. You put some wood. If you put some wood in there, it's gonna turn like a berry tree.
I grew up in a neighborhood that was backed up to woods, and they went on for miles. And when we grew up, we went outside, and we didn't come home until dinner, and then barely, it was the dinner bell would ring, and we'd be like, oh no, we gotta run home. So being outside was always, you were always outside, and you were cold and you were wet, and you weren't supposed to come home, wet, but we always played in the streams and caught tadpoles and hiked through the woods and jumped off rocks and climbed trees and made, giant fantasies about being places that were nothing like the woods, but that tree was a building, or this rock was a castle, or, so that I think kids don't have as much today, and I think that it was an essential part of who I am. We didn't necessarily have a garden when I was growing up, but I just remember being outside, and just that was a big part of my life.
You guys, if you go over and look at some of this dirt, you'll see these big hunks
Of clay.
What we want to do, no wait, we won't go over and look at it right now. You want to break that up. Okay, we want to break up that clay before we cover it on top of the plant. So Miss Karen's going to do the soil mixing. You're going to load it into the wheelbarrow.